Who's behind the mysterious Iran-backed cell haunting Europe? Is it Mossad, chat? Is it Mossad? I'm going to say it's Mossad. I've been saying it's Mossad for quite some time. I've said it was some shady set of intelligence services probably trying to amp up like anti-Semitism claims and anti-Semitic kind of like enforcement of legislation and policy in places all across Europe, which is the thing which is happening now. Everywhere. Right. Okay. Oh, no. Oh, wrong one. Oops. There we go. Right. So claims that an Iran-backed terror group is carrying out attacks against European cities raise questions about why they're not targeting countries directly involved in the US-Israel war and why they appear to communicate like Israelis. Well, I guess when you can't spell Islam in Arabic, that might be a clue. That might be a clue, because that's something that on these kind of like slides that they put out where they claim sort of like the claim actions which have been sort of like happening in the press. Whenever something happens which happens to somebody in sort of like the Jewish diaspora, like in Europe, you'll find that this group will claim responsibility pretty much instantly, even without there being any links to it. And also, you know, they can't spell Islam. They can't spell Islam. Right, all that talk of Big Ball made me think of Randy's Balls South Park episode. I don't know if I remember that, Donatella. I haven't watched South Park in a long time, but I did watch them all when they came out. I guess the older ones. Right, so strangely, suspects arrested in the attacks have been released on bail, because there's one thing you do. There's one thing you do when you have a suspect in custody who is a terrorist and you have evidence linking that terrorist to, I don't know, other terrorists or a terrorist organization, which you're claiming is linked to Iran. Obviously, I'm just going to say that's what you're claiming. Is you release them, because that's a safe thing to do, is to release terror suspects into the world, huh? Yeah, meanwhile, the Filton 24, convicted. I saw that I was going to get to that later on, hopefully, if we have some time. The spectre is haunting Europe. The spectre of Ashab al-Yamin, officially known as Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islama, HAYI, the Islamic movement of companions of the right. The group mysteriously appeared in March, according to mainstream media, and is taking the continent by storm. But a closer look at the supposedly Iran-backed terror organization suggests that it does not exist in any concrete form and may have been a confection of Israeli intelligence. Well, colour me surprised. I did not expect that. I thought we'd have an entirely different set of assumptions on this. Again, I guess I'm just right before I'm right. I love being right before everybody else is right. Though the nebulous HAYI claimed credit for torching ambulances belonging to a Jewish community organisation in London in March 23rd, two suspects in the attack have been released on bail and are not charged with any terror-related crimes. What's more, London Metropolitan Police have so far refused to release any of the men's names, raising questions about their identities. Were they even Muslim? And thank you so much for the links, comrades. I will take those and I will store those in my browser for a time after I've finished reading. Okay, yeah. Right, okay. This is the South Park episode. Right, I think we got time for a little South Park. Yeah, we could interrupt this with this breaking terror news for South Park. This breaking non-terror news, because it turns out that actually we just made it all the fuck up for a little South Park.
Cette pute, comment elle déchire!
Écoute pas la peau des couilles! Est-ce que quelqu'un a encore de la Loompa Loompa Weed?
Waouh! T'as vu ces mecs, ils ont de ces burnes.
J'aimerais tant que le mec ait des couilles comme ça.
Why is it French? I don't know, but I think it adds to it, NDC. I think it adds to it in a really good way. And thank you, Donatello, for linking that. And Steph, I have your video for after we finished reading this article. Right, so HAYI's first public mention in the West came on the March 9th, when the previously non-existent organisation released a video showing an explosive device detonating outside a synagogue in Liège, Belgium, alongside a statement taking credit for the attack. Within hours, the group had been identified by the Site Intelligence Group, an Israeli-led private intelligence firm founded in the aftermath of September 11th to cash in on the newly minted Global War on Terror. I guess not newly minted, but Global War on Terror 2.0, fucking West Asia edition. The materials HAYI published were promptly circulated on media by Joe Trusman, a self-described senior analyst examining Palestinian armed groups and proxy organizations at the Foundation of Defense for Democracies. So it came out of a fucking think tank. It came from the Foundation of Defense of Democracies. What if I told you, chat, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies didn't ever defend the actual democracy? What if the Foundation for Defense of Democracies was in fact a shadowy front group for an imperialist project which does the exact opposite, which is to threaten every democracy by creating policy which is fed through into sort of like the halls of power, where it's implemented at the behest of the capitalist class? You would know I was right, wouldn't you? I think you'd know I was right. That was a really long sentence. I don't know how I managed to say all those things. So the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a neoconservative DC-based think tank in 2001 with the stated goal to enhance Israel's image. As the Grey Zone reported, the Trump White House plagiarized its public jurisdiction for attacking Iran, word for word from an FDD paper. Though Trusman declined to state where he'd found the materials. Trust me, bro, I found all of these materials about this fictitious group. Don't worry, it's fine. I didn't just draw them last week. He wrote that Telegram channels linked to the Axis of Resistance widely disseminated the publications. No, you probably widely disseminated the publications that you wrote in the Telegram channels. Am I right? Am I close? Using reference to variety of resistance factions sympathetic to Iran and Palestine throughout the Greater Middle East. The group he linked to, a popular Telegram channel called Sabrine News, made it clear they were reposting the video, which they said was the work of a group calling themselves the Companions. Yeah, this gives, there's a list of vibes whilst pointing over a calendar. Yeah, it is very this, but with a calendar. It's, trust me, bro, don't worry. All these guns were in a highly magnetic fucking MRI machine. That's where you just keep guns. That's where you keep guns if you're like a member of the Axis of Resistance. You keep all your guns near the super powerful electromagnet. It just makes sense that way. Yeah, but it's the calendar shit. I mean, all the other sort of like items of Hasbro and weapon seizures that we see. It's the same level of shit. A forest of fucking red flags. Yeah, FDD, like, trust me, bro sources, not being able to spell Islam. Yeah, very good. Almost immediately, Trusman began asserting that these companions were about guaranteed to be a Tehran-linked cutout. For starters, he told the British media their logo with the wording is a sign of a classic Iranian front organization. As in, you made it the fuck up. because like their symbol, the symbol that this alleged group, and I say alleged group because I don't think it exists, other than inside the mind of a think tank and intelligence services, is the clenched fist holding a rifle. In this case, this is a Dragunov sniper rifle, but this is not common imagery for any resistance factions or any liberatory struggle. It's always an AK-47, absolutely every single time. And I challenge you, chat. I challenge you, and actually, no, I don't challenge you because I don't want you Googling this shit. And I don't want you getting in trouble. But I challenge you, if you know anyone who is kind of like adjacent to this, ask them if they've like experienced like any other rifle other than AK-47 and an outstretched arm and a logo, because I don't think you could find one. Yeah, the AK is the people's gun. It's synonymous. It's absolutely synonymous with liberation. It's one of the most common rifles in the world, and but very cheap, reliable, and a symbol of resistance. Stab in the dark, but all this is all dorky enough to make me think that the people behind NAFO are the same people behind this op. I mean, I couldn't comment specifically on NAFO being the same ones. I don't have any evidence about that. But I will say that these operations are pretty common, I think. I think they're pretty common. It's just disinformation. Not just disinformation, but manufacturing consent for changes of policy. Right. Right. Site intelligence. Okay, I'll come back down again. Almost immediately, right, they're a cutout for Iran. After all, he wrote, on March 8th, Makib Tahikt Ravinci, Iran's deputy foreign minister, warned that a European country joined the US and Israel in the current war against the Islamic Republic, if it would be legitimate target for its Iranian retaliation. Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear what Iran have been saying is if you're a state actor and you are participating in this war of aggression against Iran, yeah, you are obviously going to be targeted in that war. You are the enemy. I mean, I don't think this is a particular claim about a terror organization. This is more about state actors. This is reading above and beyond. This is kind of like saying, I see this thing and it's clearly a vase, but over here, this thing that I'm telling you about is a cat. And he's saying that they're the same fucking item. Over the next 2 weeks, a shadowy group would go on to take credit for burning a vehicle in a Jewish neighborhood in Antwerp, arson at a synagogue in Rotterdam, explosions near a Jewish school and financial office in Amsterdam, firebombing Jewish dedicated ambulances in London, and an unspecified attack in Greece. And now, beyond that, there have been at least two more. The last one is the stabbing of two Jewish people in Golders Green, which they're claiming responsibility for. They're claiming responsibility for that attack. And it seemed to me, after doing a decent amount of research on the perpetrator of those attacks, the guy who was already being monitored by like MI5 in the Prevent program for counterterrorism. It's like a de-radicalization program, who already had like a series of like mental illnesses and assaults in his past. It didn't seem at all connected to some terrorist network. That was the first one. And there was another one after that. Oh, no. And there was one before that, which was a synagogue, which was targeted with a bag which was burning on their doorstep, which was, I believe, 2 teenagers were arrested for. 2 teenagers and a man with mental health issues who is currently being monitored by MI5, our state surveillance service. So, yeah, bullshit. Fucking bullshit. Yeah, and Golders Green, obviously, yeah, because he was a Muslim man, yeah, that's going to draw the heat, Donatella. And obviously, you know, like, we don't support any of the shit that he did. It was bloody horrendous attack. 2 people got stabbed, but I don't think it's anything to do with HAYI or this terrorist network or organization. Right, so far, the only media outlet to have interviewed a member of HAYI is CBS News, which recently published by David Ellison, the ultra-Zionist billionaire, son of the largest individual donor to Israel's military, Larry Ellison, who happens to be a close friend of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Barry Weiss, the editor-in-chief installed by Ellison at CBS, is a self-described Zionist fanatic. Oh, it's funny that you have all of these people who support like the aspects of political Zionism being put into the same jobs so that they can shape the narratives in the same news organizations which are supported by fucking actual goddamn fascists. Funny that, isn't it? Fascists hire fascists. And this is not about like the Jewish identity. And before anyone comes out, and I know nobody here was, but like I always feel I need to cover my ass with it. We're not talking about the Jewish identity. We're talking about the Jewish identity being conflated with anti-Semitism and Zionism. They are not the same thing. The Jewish identity is quite a separate characteristic to being a Zionist, which is a political identity, which is a fascist one. And if you don't like that, go and read a goddamn book. Even look it up on Wikipedia. Wikipedia even fucking says this shit. Q Bono, among the oldest qualities of the attacks supposedly carried out by HAYI, were the targets. The countries in which the attacks occurred did not correspond to those which Iran would likely single out for retaliation. Good morning, Mama Emma. Hey, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Transfox Girl, hi. Yeah, I'm having a good day today. It's nice to feel validated. It's nice to feel validated because I've been saying this for a long time. At least 3 weeks now. But that's a long time in news. Trust me, news cycles move quick. Right. Okay. However, involvement in, right. Okay, I'm going to start this section again. Amongst the oddest qualities of these attacks supposedly carried out by HAYI, were the targets. The countries in which the attacks occurred did not correspond with those which Iran would likely single out in retaliation. Belgium, the second most targeted country, has explicitly repeatedly ruled out joining the US-Israeli war, which it describes as contrary to international law. Yeah, go and read Ellison's letter about it or something. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather not read any of his letters ever again. I think Upland. Right, how. In the most of the strange explosions have been concentrated in the Netherlands, which sent a single frigate to the Eastern Mediterranean. However, its involvement pales in comparison to a country like France, which has not been hit by a single HAYI once, despite sending an aircraft carrier and several other military assets. Strikes by Iran on these countries would therefore serve little political purpose. Thank you very much for the follow. Welcome in.
Horse piss.
Son of a two-ball bitch.
Motherfucker. Horse piss. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. After all, if these attackers hope to deter states from further involvement in the war, they would likely focus on leading European participants, such as France, Britain and Italy. Yet just one of those countries has experienced a purported HAYI attack and is only on a single occasion. I mean, no, not now. I mean, the UK has had now 3 attacks like this they're trying to pin on this group, and none of them I think are valid. Yeah, almost like they're trying to get those places in line. Yeah, they're trying to wrangle, like, not just public opinion. I think public opinion is important, but they're trying to wrangle sort of like a political opinion to, I guess, support sort of like Zionist ambitions and settler colonialism. And obviously the US and Israel's war against Iran. I think that's one side of it. But I guess more than that, make more policy and legislation available for cracking down on protest and organising of sort of like people like socialists like us and pro-Palestinian organizers by banning marches, by banning speech. Right in the news, just in the last 3 days, the big thing here is that they're trying to ban the term globalize the intifada. They're trying to ban it outright. They say it's now hate speech. They're trying to ban the Al-Quds rally on a permanent basis. They're trying to tamp down on what they are calling hate speech, saying things like from the river to the free, Palestine will be free. They're trying to do that and put that in a legal context so that they are all criminalized things that happen, much like in the same way that Palestine Action, if you said you supported Palestine Action, you were supporting a terror group. They're pushing for this legislation now. Keir Starmer wants it through. He's made statements in the press. This is the news that the last 3 weeks of these alleged attacks have kind of brought to the surface. Yeah, good morning, Komradsky. It's lovely to see you. Yeah, globalize the intifada and from the river to the sea. Yeah, no, these are just normal things which have been said at rallies since I started going to rallies. These are not sort of new terms. These are not hate speech. They're talking about the liberation of Palestinians, but the liberation of Palestinians to an Israeli is obviously a detriment to settler colonialism, which they seek to overthrow. Because, they're taking land, they're dispossessing them, they're committing a genocide. We're invisible to Komradsky. No, you're not invisible. You're just hidden behind a big ship. You're hidden behind a big ship. I brought you back into the light. We are as one. And now the plague ship must return. The plague ship, don't get on a swinging ship. Right. Actions by various European agencies do not match up with the details of the alleged crimes either. Following an attack on Hatzalah Jewish charity ambulances in London on March 23rd, police simply allowed the perpetrators to walk free on bail, demonstrating a level of leniency unlikely to be extended to the suspected Iranian spy. For Hatzalah, the incident was a blessing in disguise. The British government has since pledged to replace the damaged ambulances with 4 new vehicles for free. The organisation has already exploited the situation to rake in over £2 million in donations. At the time of publication, the London Metropolitan Police have yet to release the names of the 2 suspects in the attack. The British press has seemingly moved on from the incident. But what I will say, though, is that whenever there is an arrest, generally suspect names are not released. I don't think that is indicative of anything other than police procedure in that case. So, that's just the way it works with the Met. On the same evening as the ambulance service attack in London, this is the other one. 2 minors were arrested for burning a car in Antwerp, Belgium. Though the crime occurred in a Jewish neighborhood, the victim was reported to be a Moroccan woman named Fatia. Her vehicle, she told the Belgian outlet, had been the subject of a smash and grab by vandals who wanted the jewels that she'd been keeping in the car. Whether they were actually targeting Jewish people doesn't matter, she stated. And this is a post from Max Blumenthal. The crime being attributed to the same mysterious Iran-backed terror group that torched ambulances in London. However, the victim of the attack was a Moroccan woman named Fatia, who says that her car was robbed of jewelry, and she calls the underage subject vandals. Yeah, and right. And here we have some footage. And as you can see, you have the HAYI Group's logo in the top right corner. It's a very short video. Yeah, so a smash and grab where someone burns your car against a Moroccan woman is an anti-Semitic attack. I don't think so. For many experts, HAYI's written messages raise serious questions as well. As a Dutch professor who specializes in transnational militant Shiite groups told a national outlet, the fact that this group cannot clearly read or write Arabic fluently like a native speaker means that I do not entirely regard them as a seriously organized radical sleeper cell. There you go. I'll say that again. The fact that the group cannot read or write Arabic fluently like a native speaker means that I do not entirely regard them as a serious, organized, radical sleeper cell. Yeah, Hajik, usually when I hear music like that, I'm watching FPV drone footage on its way to an Israeli target. Yeah, that would be good. Heard Sky News reporting last night, police started investigating an attack on a former synagogue. A former synagogue. Okay, Donatella. Right. Yeah, ignoring the fact that the former synagogue is a current mosque. Yeah, and it's just every opportunity to mislead people, every opportunity to craft these narratives. I mean, this is like, I guess you've got the Hasbro end of like the public relations machine of like the state of Israel, but you also have the direct involvement in taking, I guess you can say it comes down to two things. You have the public relations end, which is like the back end. That's the last bit which takes place. You have the attributing random acts of anti-Semitic violence. And there are acts of anti-Semitic violence. They do happen because when you have a state, which is Israel, which is encouraging, like this, the general kind of like waters in society of like anti-Semitism to unpolitically aware people who might not be politically engaged and understand what the struggle looks like against Zionists and not the struggle as it looks like against Jewish people. And there is a difference. There is a difference because there are plenty of goddamn Jewish people in our organizations who are not Zionists. There are plenty of anti-Zionists who are Jews who live, even maybe not socialists, even those who are liberals. They're out there. Well, I've seen them. I've met them on marches. But you know that that's the case. That's the case. So you have that conflation. But when you have like Zionism, which actively stokes these flames by perpetuating these claims against, oh, it's just that all Jews who are the problem. It's just all Jews who are going to be targeted. I think, yeah, there is confusion in wider society about that. And it does get seized on by opportunists or people who have mental disorders, like the guy at the Golders Green attack. But that gets claimed then by Zionists themselves as an anti-Semitic attack, and the whole cycle perpetuates. Like Zionism is one of the most anti-Semitic forms of sort of like political ideology that you would ever find. It makes Jews in the diaspora far more unsafe because of the war crimes and the atrocities that people rightly are angry with. So anyway, so you've got that. And then you have like, I guess, a third order as well, which is that you do have intelligence services which do portray things, do actually do things like false flags. And Mossad as well, like especially their involvement in Iraq in the past, have targeted Jewish diasporas directly by funding groups who have perpetrated terror attacks. And I'm not out of my element when I say that. This is all well sourced. It's been sourced by ex-Mossad officials, written about in biographies and intelligence documents, which are available online. So yeah, you've got these three different things which converge in sort of like making the environment for people just to live and fucking experience society incredibly difficult. And it amps up the tension all the time. It seeks to amp up the tension. That's the point. Anti-Semitism, the Sorry, I apologize, Ree. The anti-Semitism is frustrating. I have to stop sharing videos before I finish watching them because sometimes an angry Arab will say Jews instead of Israelis or Zionist. Worst is when a white person is spitting, but it says Jews instead of Zionist. Yeah, and I think that's where it gets tricky, Ree. You know, as political actors in this, as people who support this, we've got to make a very, very clear distinction, because otherwise we end up getting lumped in with the far right, who are the ones who perpetrate most of this anti-Semitism against Jewish people in diasporic communities. That's why we need to be careful. And I've never been to a march, a rally, or an event, a sit-in, anything like that, where I have ever experienced that on the left. I haven't experienced it. And do you know why that is? It's because we are all so fucking careful to make sure that conflation isn't there and can be used by the state of Israel to further their fucking ambitions, to further their propaganda game against sort of organizing. And we must be careful about that. There is a distinction to be made. But it is righteous violence. There is righteous outrage there to be had at what Israel is doing. And sometimes it's going to take a form which I don't politically support. But I see why it's happening, but we've got to be aware of that. Official Iranian broadcasts, like those of virtually every Islamic resistance group on the planet, generally refrain from using such language, where they view legitimizing the apartheid state. They tend to prefer terms like Zionist regime or occupied Palestine. The language used in the communique by the supposed Iranian-linked group is far more characteristic of Israeli speech patterns. From Iraq to Australia, Israel's dark record raises questions. One of the first marches I went to, there was a younger black guy standing on the median planter yelling a piece of hate speech as we passed, and happy to say a lot of people yelled at him to shut up and that he was wrong. And he was wrong, really. And I appreciate you posting that, because we've all been involved in these communities, and we know this we are not the seat of anti-Semitism. It's external. That's the myth that sort of political Zionists want to put onto us to make us look bad. There is, of course, an alternative explanation to why someone would want to carry out a series of low-impact, relatively harmless bombings of Jewish sites. The same strategy was widely employed by Zionist spies in Iraq in the early 50s, following Israel's creation, when at least 5 bombings targeted Jewish locations were carried out. Israeli historian Avi Shaim later uncovered extensive evidence that Israeli intelligence had perpetrated a majority of the attacks in an effort to encourage the Jewish exodus to Israel. Yeah, it was specifically targeting a diasporic community so that you would have more people who would go to Israel and who would leave Iraq and go to Israel. This was the way it was done, and that's well documented. I'm just going to plug my light in a second because I've run out of power. I've run out of juice. Oop, I'm light again. Otherwise, I look very white, I've noticed. I am very white, but I am very white in a political sense. Maybe I'm less white in a political sense than a lot of people who exude whiteness. I use my whiteness for good, I think. Right there. Right, Yaakov Kirill, a member of the Iraqi Zionist underground who worked closely with the convicted spy Yosef Bazri at the time, told Shalim that this was a deliberate strategy to terrorize and not to kill Jews in the region and force their resettlement. And here we have a sourced article. This is from the Austrian broadsheet newspaper, from 51 to 50, from 50 to 51, wave of bombings targeted across synagogues in Iraq. Though many in the West blamed Arab, the Iraqis at the time, Jewish historian Avi Shaim later concluded that without any doubt, the Zionist underground with the Israeli involvement was responsible for the 3 bombings. Yeah, and this was like mainstream news. It was mainstream news. And that's only just recently. There's been stuff published about this for a long time before that, and like you can find actual books on that. It's even in fucking like biographies of people who have worked for Mossad. If that was the case, the strategy worked to perfection. Within several years, over 95% of Iraq's Jews had migrated. The pattern appears to have continued for decades since. Other observers have drawn attention to the bizarre incidents in the 94 car bombing of the Israeli embassy in London, which left 20 people injured with mostly minor wounds. In the aftermath, it became clear that the main organizer, a man going by the name of Reda Moghrabi, had vanished. In his place are 2 Palestinian academics who were active in local solidarity movements, Samar Alami and Jawad Botmer, were ultimately convicted of conspiring to bomb the embassy, despite being nowhere near the embassy at the time of the detonation, and despite Israeli embassy cameras nearby mysteriously malfunctioning on the day. Both later concluded that Moghrabi was likely a Mossad agent operating under an alias. So there's enough to be incredibly suspicious. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Transfox Girl. Later, like years later, MI5 whistleblower Machon openly stated that the 94 bombing was a false flag by Israel. Speaking to an interviewer, Machon noted that what happened? Something happened. Something happened there. I'm sure I saw something. I don't know what that was. I'm not sure what that was. I'm sure I saw something on that screen. I don't know. Maybe I'm hallucinating. I haven't had much sleep. Years later, whistleblower Annie Macron openly stated that in 1994, the bombing was a false flag attack by Israel. Speaking to an interviewer, Mahon noticed that the senior MI5 agent in charge of the agency's investigation concluded that Mossad had bombed their own embassy. And I've seen interviews with Annie, who is like a whistleblower for MI5, who is working as an agent at the time. I've seen interviews, and I think she's an incredibly important witness in this. They're out there. You can find that on YouTube. You can actually go. She's been interviewed in lots of different places. Hey Duke, thank you so much for the resubbing with Prime. I appreciate that. I am not in the MI5. I am not in the MI5. I would never have been in the MI5 because their coffee is terrible. Here at GCHQ, we have much better coffee. It's freshly roasted. The machines are nice. We're like tech bros, you know. We do all the SIGINT shit. We look at all your porn inquiries and blackmail our enemies. How do you know that coffee is terrible, Dave? Trust me, bro. I've heard it from a guy in a pub.
Unexpected item in bagging area.
Blockade.
Thanks for redemption. Phew, Mag.
I thought this was easy.
Skin of the teeth. You got me out of that one, mate. Hell of a job watching porn all day. Eric, welcome in. It's good to see you, mate. Yeah, GCHQ ain't all it cracked up to be. No, it's Donatella. Oh no, I'm casting side eyes at all of my chatters now. Oh no. Okay, for the next 10 minutes, while we get through the end of this article, let's not fed jacket each other. Let's nobody do that in chat. We're not going to do it. We're not going to fed post. We're not going to fed jacket anyone. Oh, I love you, chat. You're brilliant. Thanks for hanging out whilst I read this. I just thought it's, I mean, like, since Larry linked it, because I didn't know the Grey Zone had done a piece on it. This is great. The senior MI5 said that Israel did it for two reasons. Macon explained. Primarily, she said, Israeli officials were always hassling MI5 for increased security around their embassy and other interests in London, because London had a reputation of giving a safe haven to Arab dissidents from around the world at that point. But MI5 kept saying, well, there's no reason to increase the threat assessment. You don't need the extra protection. So letting off a controlled explosion, of course, they immediately got what they wanted. And below here, you've got Annie Macron, the former MI5 officer, who's giving an interview explaining why it was a false flag attack.
It's a false flag attack in London in 1994, where a car bomb exploded outside the Israeli embassy. The senior MI5 officer, who was in charge of the investigation into it and had seen all the evidence but also all the intelligence, which isn't necessarily admissible in court, wrote his formal assessment at the end of the case, and he said he reckoned that Mossad, the Israeli external intelligence agency, had bombed their own embassy. And he said that they did it for two reasons. One, they were always hassling MI5 for increased security around their embassy and other interests in London, because, of course, London had a reputation of giving safe haven to Arab dissidents from around the world at that point. And MI5 kept saying, well, there's no reason to increase the threat assessment. You don't need extra protection. So letting off a controlled explosion outside, of course, they immediately got what they wanted there. But crucially, two innocent Palestinians were arrested, charged and convicted of conspiracy to cause that attack. And they were very active in a Palestinian support network in London, political campaigning for the people on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And they were gaining some traction in the media. They were getting quite a lot of support. So by arresting these people and framing them for an attack and sticking them in prison, the whole network just shattered and hasn't got back on its feet to this day. So that would be a clear political advantage for Mossad to have achieved in London by framing these innocent people for an attack which was carried out by Mossad.
Yeah, and I think that's an incredibly important piece of evidence that we're seeing there. I think it's interesting when you do have people from MI5 talking, quite openly about their experiences in the intelligence services. Usually you find that if it's MI5, they're up to no good, and they think that, well, what I was doing was good for the country. But they'll tell you straight about operations. They'll tell you straight up what they think. They'll always frame it that they're the good guys, but, that's another thing. Also, I don't know if any of you noticed, how distinctly like, Theresa May, she looks, which kind of is freaking me out a little bit. It's just a little bit.
MI5 officer.
She looks awfully like Theresa May. They're not the same person. I assure you, chat, they are not the same person. Wouldn't that be something, though? Secondly, Macron explained that two Palestinians were arrested and charged with conspiracy to cause the attack. And yeah, this just quotes the piece that we've been reading. There's a major possibility a similar plan was set in motion in Australia, which much more recently, when a wave of attacks on Jewish communities followed the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's decision to recognise Palestine as a state in 2025. The media there immediately pinned the blame on Iran, prompting Canberra to expel Iran's ambassador. This belief, it turned out, was also based in Israeli influence. As the Grey Zone reported at the time, Australia's Sky News revealed that Israel originally provided Australia's intelligence agency, ASIO, with a tip-off or lead in relation to one of the firebombings, which indicated that a spate of attacks was orchestrated by Iran. Yeah, Bondi Beach is another one which I think people looked at very, very closely, Transfoxcar. And it did not seem right that someone with a criminal record would have access to firearms like that. And they did clearly have access to legally procured firearms. So, yeah, there was a lot going on there. I'm going to stay on topic. It might be brought up later on. Here we go. Yes, the Bondi Beach attack. In December, when a pair of ISIS sympathizers attacked Hanukkah ceremony on Bondi Beach, Sydney, Australia, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu immediately blamed an unspecified Iranian-backed foreign terror cell. He also signalled out Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, accusing him of inspiring the attack by recognising a Palestinian state. 2 months later, Israeli President Isaac Herzog flew to Canberra to promote Israel's planned assault on Iran. During his trip, Herzog held an unprecedented secret meeting with the ASIO director, General Mike Burgess. So yeah, you've got like direct interactions with the president and like their Australian intelligence services. The president met with the Director General of Security and was briefed by ASIO's counterterrorism team on their work following the Bondi attack. ASIO spokesman claimed the meeting was revealed. So I thought this was a really good article, and like, thank you very much for linking that, Larry. I just kind of skimmed it before reading through, but in many ways, I'm very pleased that my own analysis kind of like pretty much came out to this. And it was interesting getting the details on the London terror attack as well. Like, because I think when you've got intelligence services themselves or members of the intelligence services saying that, you know, this was a false flag attack on the London embassy, you can see a pattern. You can see these patterns emerge. And we're not talking like string on a chalkboard. We're not talking string on a corkboard or anything like that. We're talking like legitimate sort of like intelligence actions which are for an effect. And that effect is to cause Jews across sort of like diasporic communities to be incredibly concerned and encourage them to emigrate to the state of Israel. So it was interesting, especially in regard to that terror group itself. Right, I'm going to need